What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. It's the first starting 11 prediction of the season for Flag Day tomorrow against Kilmarnock at Celtic Park. Absolutely buzzing to get back to the proper football tomorrow. Really looking forward to it. Should be a brilliant atmosphere, a full stadium display before the game, then the raising of the flag before the actual football gets underway. So lots to look forward to, lots to get through today as well. First up, we're going to touch on Brendan Rodgers' comments in the pre-match press conference yesterday. Coming up, we'll also have player in focus, who this week for the first weekend of the season is going to be Kyo-go after the news last night that it looks like he's changed agency. And this season, we're also going to look briefly at the opposition lineup and what that might look like ahead of each game, just to freshen things up. Just to bring a slightly different angle to the starting 11 prediction, which is now in its 7th season. Would you believe? So we're trying to make it better all the time. We're going to have a quick look at how Kilmarnock might line up in the game as well after their defeat in Europe on Thursday night. So first of all, Brendan Rodgers' pre-match press conference yesterday I thought was absolutely blockbuster. 24 minutes long. He gave lots and lots of detailed long answers. I thought there was a lot of straight talking in it. I thought he made a lot of very clear points. The first one, straight off the bat, was about the consistency of the team last season and how, I suppose, if he boils it down, what he's looking for this season is a better footballing level more consistently, and that harks back to last season, which we all knew at the time. And I think going through the season, sometimes everybody's got different opinions and people think you're being too harsh on the team when you're critical, but there's absolutely no denying that Brendan Rodgers will be the harshest critic of the team, and he holds the team at a high standard, and we have to play better football more consistently than we did last season, because up until that last 2 or 3 months there was long spells of the season that were a slog, where we didn't play like a Celtic team at times. We didn't play with the speed and our attack that we should do, and we didn't even look like a Brendan Rodgers team. It was just something we also alluded to yesterday, which I'm sure he's enjoyed. But aside from that, he made very, very clear comments about how we have to be better in Europe. It's as simple as that. We've got to get better players. We've got to get better quality for that. There's no escaping that, and we have to do whatever we can to find that. It really is as simple as that. It couldn't be any clearer. I think he made a really good point about the duty of the club to give the supporters the best possible team they can on the park for the money the supporters put in. Ironically, it's a comment that I made, very similar to the comments I was making in the season preview that I did with Martin and Darren. Over the years, we put more and more of our money in every single season, and we would like to see that returned by a board showing a bit of ambition and trying to make the football club, the football team, the best it can be on the pitch. That's what we want. We want the club and the team to be the absolute best it can be, and sitting on tens of millions of pounds is not executing that. That's inefficient. I think it's cripplingly risk averse. It's the same things that we say every summer. So we've got 4 weeks to see how the rest of this plays out. We hope it doesn't play out like most of the other transfer windows in recent history have done. But the message from the manager yesterday was very, very clear. And I think he's on the same page as the supporters, and a lot of people might not like that. And some people might think he's trying to send subtle messages to the board, but so be it. I think he knows where people stand on this, and while he did say he didn't want to get dragged down by the negative, toxic energy that sometimes surrounds transfers, particularly when it comes to Celtic, I don't think there's any doubt that we know where he stands, and he knows where we stand as well. So the club have got to get the business done. We sound like a broken record, and listen, it might never materialise given the history and the recent history, going back quite a long time now, but we'll see how it plays out. I just thought the pre-match press conference was interesting yesterday. Right, we'll move on. We face Kilmarnock tomorrow, obviously. They caused us problems last season, put us out the League Cup early doors. They beat us at Rugby Park in September. They also got a 1-1 draw at Celtic Park after the turn of the year as well. So there's no doubt they can cause us problems. They've obviously had this double header with Cercle Bruges in the Europa League qualifying. They lost 1-0 after a 1-1 first leg draw at Rugby Park last week. So they'll be disappointed with that. They've obviously travelled away. They've played in difficult conditions. They're not used to that as a squad. So hopefully they'll be worse for wear for that. And if we are, obviously, regardless of where they are at, if we're at our top level, we should be able to win the game. So let's have a quick look at how Kilmarnock might line up tomorrow then, before we look at the Celtic team, obviously, in more detail. No doubt be McCrory in goals, who's joined them for Rangers in the summer. The back four, I think, will be Mayo, Wright, Finlay, and Dees. In midfield, I think there might be a couple of changes for their team that played in Bruges on Thursday. It'll look something like Donnelly and Watson in the middle. And then the wide players who did cause us problems in some of those games they did well against us last season, which is Danny Armstrong on one side, Matty Kennedy on the other. And I think McInnes liked the combination of Marley Watkins and Vassell up against us. So I think it'll look something like that for Kilmarnock tomorrow. Not quite 4-4-2. Obviously, Watkins will play slightly deeper. It could be a combination of players, though. I'm not going to dwell too much on getting the Kilmarnock side absolutely spot on. But that's something what they'll line up like. We know what their threats are. They're physical. They can be aggressive. They were aggressive in their pressing against us at times last season at Rugby Park. I don't expect them to play anything like that tomorrow, given that they're coming to Celtic Park. They've been playing in Europe during the week. I don't expect them to be too aggressive in terms of their pressing against us tomorrow, but they're a physical side, and in Kennedy and Armstrong they can have quality out wide. And balls into the box for the likes of Vassell and Watkins, so we've just got to be switched on to that defensively. But you'd expect us, if we're anywhere near a top level, to be able to win the game comfortably. So let's move on and look then at that Celtic starting 11. The first one of the season, and it's going to involve a debut for Kasper Schmeichel in goals. Had the chance to talk to him during the week. Really enjoyed it, really engaging, positive individual. You can tell that he's a leader. He's got a great presence about him, and maybe more importantly than anything else, he looks buzzing to be here. Obviously, he revealed that Brendan Rodgers got in touch with him after the Euros. People have been up in arms about that. That shouldn't shock anybody. I think that it's quite clear how that transfer came about. And if you want to go back to the transfer situation and say we brought in Sinisalo, Schmeichel, and Bernardo. Bernardo was a loan with an option to buy that it took us a month or more to get over the line. And Kasper Schmeichel is the number one goalkeeper we needed, and Brendan Rodgers had to phone him up. So what that says about the recruitment operation and the scouting operation, I'll leave that open for you guys to debate in the comments. But I'm buzzing to see Kasper Schmeichel in goals for Celtic. I've been really impressed with him pre-season, and I think we're going to enjoy watching him, hopefully, for 2 seasons, if not the one that he's already signed up for. Back four, Ralston at right back. I don't think Johnston's going to be back ready to start yet. He'd obviously had that break, and then he played in the Copa America with Canada. Only really just rejoined the squad in the last week to 10 days. I'm not sure he'll be fully fit to start the game. He's basically had very, very little holiday, Alistair Johnston, and given that ankle injury he came back off at the start of last season, I think they'll want to be just careful with him and make sure he's in top condition before putting him back into a starting lineup. Centre half, Carter Vickers and Scales. Taylor will complete the back four. Lots of areas of the back four we would still like to improve, of course. Left centre back and left back among them. Left back's the most important one because currently we've only got one fit left back in Greg Taylor. Lots of centre halves, 6 first team centre halves, some of whom are linked to moves away. They're out of contention. They're not in favour with the manager. Whether we can offload them or not is another matter, but I don't think we'll bring anybody in that area until we can do so. With Carter Vickers in there, you're looking for that solidity, and it's going to be key in the first few weeks just for them to get to know Kasper Schmeichel and build that relationship with him, similar to what they had with Joe Hart. But I think Schmeichel is a commanding presence in a very similar vein to Hart. It'll be someone that they'll trust to be behind them, and they can hopefully knit a good relationship together in that back five. In midfield, picks itself, of course, McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate. How many more games will we see Matt O'Reilly play at Celtic Park? Hopefully lots more. If you think about it, this could be one of the final ones if he has to move on before the end of the transfer window. Let's hope he doesn't. He's been in brilliant pre-season form. Really, really good goal scoring form. He just looks so confident. He looks like he's in a really good place physically and mentally, off the back of that tremendous campaign that he had last season as well. And alongside him, Hatate, who had a really disrupted season with injuries. He's got to stay fit. And again, obviously there's some rumours around him in terms of the likes of Leicester, looking at him. There's interest in him. Hopefully we can keep a hold of him. There's absolutely no circumstance under which we can lose both of those key players in midfield. I'm looking forward to seeing Hatate again. He's looked sharp in some of the pre-season games. If he can stay fit and we keep a hold of him, he can be an absolutely huge player for us going forward this season. The front three, I think, will look something like this. Kuhn on the right-hand side, Lewis, Palmer on the left, and Kyo-go through the middle. I know I like to favour Kyo-go through the middle, but I don't think anybody can argue with that, given he's the only striker at the club at the minute. Kuhn on the right-hand side, brilliant in the pre-season game against Man City, has looked sharper, has looked stronger. Hopefully we get a better campaign from him. I know he only had the back end of the season when he came in January, but he did look weak at times. But I think he's shown enough this pre-season where you're just looking for him to go and be consistent, take the bull by the horns, and show us that he can be a Celtic winger over a medium to long term. Palmer's going to start on the left-hand side. I think I was toying with the idea of putting James Forrest in there, but Maeda's injured. I think he's had that bruise in his knee. Brendan Rodgers said they probably wouldn't risk him, or they would leave it till the last minute to see about putting him in for tomorrow's game. On that basis, I'm just going Palmer, who I think's looked relatively sharp in pre-season. He's another one who's got to do more this season. Again, take initiative, show that he wants to be the number one starter in that position, and convince Brendan Rodgers that there's no chance anybody should be starting ahead of him. I think to do that, he's got to put a lot more work in off the ball, and I think he's got to be a lot more decisive on the ball as well. But we know Palmer always carries a goal threat, so I think he'll pip maybe James Forrest on the left-hand side tomorrow, only because Forrest is not naturally a left winger. So probably see James at some point in the game, but that's the two wingers I'm going with. And Kyo-go through the middle, who is the playing focus this week. And it's off the back of that news last night that he has changed agency to CAA Base, which I think is the agency that represents Ange Postecoglou. Spurs fans were all over that thread last night on Twitter underneath that announcement. Now, players don't tend to change agent unless they're looking for a new contract or a transfer move. That's the consensus. He's obviously only signed a new contract extension last year. His contract runs until 2027, I believe it is, the summer of 2027. So he's got 3 years left to run. He's been here for 3 years. He's approaching his 30s. It's not out with the realm of possibility that he is looking to move on. I would obviously be heartbroken about that. If you look at his stats, he's played 133 games for Celtic, scored 73 goals. That's not a bad return. I'd like to see him get to the 100 mark, as I do with all strikers that are at Celtic for a prolonged period of time, 3 seasons or more. You want to see them get to that 100 club, which is quite exclusive. There's not a lot of players in Celtic's history that have managed to make it into that unique club of scoring 100 goals or more. That's 27 this season, so if he does stay and we do hold on to him, which we have to in this circumstance where he's the only fit striker at the club, I'd like to see him hopefully get 27 or more this season, get to the 100 goal mark, and hopefully have another successful season. I love watching him. I think he's absolutely brilliant, as you all know. But I think that if we do get another season out of him, I think it wouldn't surprise me if he did move on, maybe this time next summer. But again, there's no circumstances under which I think we can lose him this season, particularly with the rumours around O'Reilly and Hatate. It's unthinkable to consider Kyo-go leaving, given that he's the only fit striker at the club. He's such a key player for us. We don't need to rebuild entirely that position of the pitch in the last 3 or 4 weeks of the window. So hopefully there's nothing to that, nothing imminent to that change of agency. But I hope he can have a much better season this campaign. He did get 19 goals last season, nothing like the 34 that he got the season before. Hopefully we can get him more involved. I think some of the patterns of play in pre-season suited his game a lot more. I think the speed we were playing at, I think Matt O'Reilly making those runs beyond the wide players, opening up space, getting the ball to the byline for low cutbacks, which we know Kyo-go lives off of. If we can get into those areas more consistently at more speed this season, there's no doubt Kyo-go will score more goals. We've just got to keep that relentless approach to the attack that we've had in pre-season, and I know that's difficult playing against deep defences. That's the big question mark this season. Can we be more ruthless? Can we play at more pace, more consistently throughout the course of this domestic campaign? Because that's where we struggled last season. It became sluggish against these deep defences, and that really stifled Kyo-go at times. He's got to get more involved. I accept that, but we've got to get the service to him, and I think some of those patterns of play, getting the ball to the byline, underlaps for the midfield players, opening up the gaps down the sides of the opposition defence, can get more chances to him, and we know that he'll score goals if we give him those chances. So there you go, that's the first starting 11 prediction of the season. Another thing we're adding this season that will start next week, as we're going to have a counter in the corner of the screen, counting the number of times I get the starting 11 right through a season. That might get embarrassing at different points of the campaign, a wee bit of scoreboard pressure for me, but we'll start that next week. Like the video, comment with your own thoughts in the team below. Who do you think will start? Don't forget to subscribe as always, and we'll see you tomorrow with all of the full-time reaction after the game. Cheers.